So we haven't had the opportunity to discuss issues relating to the EU since Britain formally left the European Union on the 31st of January last. So I'd like Ceann Comhairle to begin my remarks by paying tribute to the former Sinn Féin MEP for the North of Ireland, Martina Anderson, and to commend her for her tireless work and effort as a member of the Parliament over the past 8 years. Gramila Mahagat Martina agus Mahu. I also want to wish the new Sinn Féin MEP for the Midlands North West, Chris McManus, the very best of luck in his new role as he takes up the post previously held by the new Teachta for Cavan Monaghan Matt Carthy. And I know from my own experience that being an MEP is no easy job, so I want to wish Chris well as he takes up the baton from Matt and to commend both of them for all of their efforts. Ceann Comhairle, Europe finds itself facing many challenges in the coming years. The outworkings of Brexit rumble on. Brexit is far from done. The climate emergency now looms as an issue requiring urgent international and European cooperation. And of course, migration and, let it be said, the manner in which European countries and the system as a whole responds to migration is a huge issue as we look to what's happening in the Mediterranean right now and as we look to the Greek-Turkish border also. Of course, the impact of the coronavirus is now being felt right across our continent, and our farmers, in light of recent proposals around the EU's multi-annual budget, face a dramatic loss of income on top of existing pressures in the agri-sector. And meanwhile, we face massive pressures here at home in housing, in health, in securing a dignified pension age and in making our tax system fairer. So these are indeed challenging times. And despite that, let it be said, as we meet here in the Dáil, we have two parties in this place engaged in shadow boxing, playing games with the intent, it seems to me, of laying out a pathway for government together, an outcome which would fly Ceann Comhairle in the face of the very type of change that people voted for on the 8th of February last. So we all know what they're at. They might at least be honest with themselves and with each other. For Sinn Féin's part, we are intent on something very different because we want a government for change. Our efforts in that regard are very serious and very real, and we have worked hard with others to form that government. And by that I mean a government that will invest in public services, that will address the trolley crisis and open hospital beds, that will build homes, that will reduce rents and freeze them, and that will give workers and families a break. In respect of the future relationship between our island and Britain, we want to be clear that we need to build very strong and lasting relationships. It is a matter of alarm, though it should not be a matter of very great surprise, that the British Tory government appears at this time to be reneging on commitments it has entered into, and we must resolve not to allow that to happen. It is essential that the protections agreed in the Irish Protocol of the withdrawal agreement are maintained, honoured and implemented. That is vital, and that is what Sinn Féin will work towards. We want seamless trade and all that goes with that as a feature of our future relationship between this island and Britain. That, after all, is what's in our interests and in theirs. And on this matter, Ceann Comhairle, I believe there is a political consensus across the Dáil. There certainly was in the last Dáil, and I hope that that would continue. We shouldn't lose sight that in the coming years it will be necessary to recognise and address the reality that one part of our island is now outside the European Union whilst the other part is inside. That, in my view, is simply not sustainable into the future. And that is why we in Sinn Féin have made it clear that planning for a referendum on Irish unity has to start now. There can be no further delay. and that a referendum in that regard should be held within the next 5 years. So to that end, we believe that it will be essential to publish a white paper on Irish unity, to establish a joint Oireachtas committee on Irish unity, and very importantly to establish an all-island conversation, an assembly or a forum to discuss and to plan the pathway ahead for all of our people. We shouldn't lose sight of the fact either that the North voted to remain inside the European Union and that the people of the North had their say on that matter and in the future must have their say again in terms of a new Ireland. We believe that unity is the way forward. After a very long and a very frustrating period since we last met debating in this format, Ceann Comhairle, the North's power-sharing government has been re-established. I want to say that there is absolutely no contradiction in actively working power-sharing and the arrangements of the Good Friday Agreement, whilst at the same time preparing for constitutional change. Since the institutions have been re-established, the Executive has done really very good work, and I want to commend every party to the power-sharing government, but to particularly recognise the work of the Sinn Féin team under the leadership of Joint First Minister Michelle O'Neill. They're hard at it, they're determined to do a lot more in the time ahead, but so far the bedroom tax has been binned. 38,000 households have been protected from Tory cuts. They have moved very quickly to end the pay inequalities for health workers, and they now enjoy equal pay. There's been a new housing programme announced, additional funding for education, and the victims and survivors of the contaminated blood scandal in the North will receive the compensation that they are due. These are examples, Ceann Comhairle, of good government leading from the front, and that's what must apply at a European level as well as here at home. The current European Union multi-annual budgetary proposals to dramatically increase European defence and military spending flies in the face of Irish foreign policy and Irish priorities. We are a military neutral, and we have no business sending money to Brussels to be spent on the development of an EU army, on munitions, and to further involve ourselves in NATO. Not alone are these matters wrong, but what makes it worse is that all of this comes at a time when there is a proposal to dramatically decrease the funding for the Common Agricultural Policy to the tune of €53.2 billion over 6 years. Let's be plain about this. This will make Irish family farms unviable. This would have a devastating impact on farmers, but not on them alone, but also on rural Ireland. Alongside this, Irish farmers need to contend with the EU-Mercosur trade deal coming down the tracks. This is a matter that we debated in the last Dáil. It's absolutely essential that the Irish government protects Irish interests and Irish agriculture and rejects this deal. We're very clear with regards to CAP. There should be no budget cuts, and we need to restructure payments to ensure that funding available is used to increase payments for farmers on the lower end of the scale, not for the big ranchers. Ireland is now a net contributor to the EU budget and has been for some time, and as such we need to ensure that we use our voice to reject any proposal to decrease CAP funding. Now, Ceann Comhairle, this government, in its caretaker capacity, should immediately convene a discussion on this matter with all parties in the Dáil, because I believe it is a matter of vital national importance. By the time we have European Council statements again, Ceann Comhairle, I very much hope that we will have a new government in place. I've made the point already that there is no need to be a lengthy delay in this process. There is a lot of work to be done. There are a lot of changes to be made. Sinn Féin wants to deliver on our commitments to the people and to deliver for those who have placed their trust in us. Other parties here also have that mandate for change, and we want to work alongside them. There are others who are intent on extricating themselves from that process, and of course there are those who cling desperately still to the status quo. We know well that the politics of exclusion doesn't work. It never has, it never will. Those that choose to disrespect the hundreds of thousands of people who vote for Sinn Féin should wise up and accept that the days of the political establishment having it your own way are over. The people have said so loudly and clearly, and their message must be heard. The business of doing politics, Ceann Comhairle, the business of better government, the business of delivering for the people is all about charting something new, a new way forward. I've laid some of the very serious issues facing us out at home and abroad. We are all more than up to facing those challenges with real solutions that deliver for our people domestically, across the European stage and internationally.